India has, for a long time, been a very important voice for the Global South. Dr. Jaishankar was really shining the light on a number of very important issues. The Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has stated that India is very much invested in being a force for peace. India was the very first country to really bring the Women, Peace and Security 1325 agenda to bear by bringing women into the peacekeeping forces. India's moving the global needle by what India is achieving at home is a stepping stone on the same path to 2047, to Viksit Bharat.
We're at UNGA 80. What's different this year?
Well, I think every year the General Assembly is crucially important. And just walking around these halls, it's really an inspiration. You see all the world's peoples coming together. This is a particularly important year, as you mentioned. It's the 80th anniversary. So 80 years ago, the very concept of communities, of countries working together for collective solutions to common challenges was really sort of cemented. This year is also a year of milestones in the sense not just the 80th, but 10th anniversary of the Sustainable Development Goals, putting targets and numbers on our collective aspirations. We look at a number of different anniversaries also. Unfortunately, we also see that we're very much off track. So the Sustainable Development Goals, I think something like 2/3 are actually off track. So at the very moment that we should be really taking stock of how we need to accelerate this collective action, unfortunately, it also seems to be a bit of a sad milestone in the sense that for the first time since the founding of the UN, some are pulling away from this global commons as well. So I think that's, a lot of challenges, but a lot of reasons for optimism here too. We've had the anniversary of the World Conference on Women's Empowerment, Gender Equality that took place. We've had the Climate Summit here also. So really a number of real action-oriented conversations happening.
We've seen Dr. Jaishankar interacting with countries from Latin America, the Global South altogether. How do you see, or how does the UN really support India's multilateralism or being like the voice of the Global South?
Well, I think that, first of all, what we see, what has come through very, very clearly, is that the world has changed significantly since the UN was founded 80 years ago. And probably the most important component of that change has been the rise of the Global South. So the Global South today actually now accounts for something like 80%, or at least let's say the majority of economic growth, of GDP growth, increasingly of engines of innovation, young populations as well. India has, for a long time, been a very important voice for the Global South. And I think we've just seen that even coming to a new level in recent years. We saw India's presidency of the G20, where India put the voice of the Global South very squarely in the front. And again, Dr. Jaishankar's remarks today. We saw India invite the African Union into the G20 format as well. So I think that India is playing an incredibly important role, both as a voice for the Global South, but also as an important actor for the Global South. So India has been able to demonstrate at incredible scale development solutions, Indian-made development solutions, lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, providing really a new model of digital public infrastructure, of food security, rights-based programs like that. And now India is increasingly making these solutions available at free of cost to countries of the Global South. And not only, many of India's solutions are valuable for all countries, even high-income ones, but providing these solutions to countries of the Global South. And we in the United Nations are very pleased to be proud to be humble partners in that in many different ways. We have the India-UN Development Partnership Fund based here in New York out of the Office of South-South Cooperation. We've also just launched a brand new initiative using the UN country team in India in partnership with the External Affairs Ministry of India to help amplify Indian South-South best practices through Indian institutional technical partners and the ITEC program for select countries in the Latin America, Caribbean, and in Africa, and other countries in Asia as well. So really this gives us hope that despite all of the lack of progress on the SDGs, with new engines of growth, innovation, inspiration like India, that we will be able to achieve the SDGs.
India's External Affairs Minister participated in the G20 ministerial here on the sidelines of UNGA. Your impression of what he said today?
Well, I think, first of all, let me just say that it was a great pleasure to have External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar joining for the joint India Day event last night also, which was co-hosted by the Permanent Mission of India, ORF, the United Nations in India, and Reliance Foundation. So that was really, he delivered some very powerful remarks at that event last night. Now, at the G20 Foreign Ministers, I think that, Dr. Jaishankar was really shining the light on a number of very important issues. First of all, he said that you cannot have peace without development. You cannot have development without peace. So we have to be looking at these two in a very balanced way. And he called out some of the double standards that we see in the world. He pointed out that the Global South is actually paying the highest price for many of the crises we're facing today, the conflicts raging from Ukraine and Palestine and Sudan, but the negative impacts on energy security, negative impacts on food security, debt crisis. All of these are really, really damaging countries of the Global South, developing countries much more, those who really didn't create these problems. So he called for really an equitable approach and climate justice, and I think these are very balanced remarks.
How effective India is in diplomatic approaches to end conflicts or to bring peace, whether it's the Gaza conflict, whether it's the Ukraine conflict. What is the UN's take on that?
Well, I think that it's very clear the conflicts facing the world today are incredibly complicated. There are many actors involved. They have been intractable, not without efforts. Certainly the UN has made many efforts. I mean, we saw some, we have seen some breakthroughs of the Black Sea grain deal, for example, in the Ukraine conflict was managed to help alleviate some of the pressures for a while. Unfortunately, it was discontinued. But clearly, this takes everybody working together. And here, I think, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has stated that India is very much invested in being a force for peace. We see India's powerful role in peace and security, which has been important for a long time, actually. You look at UN peacekeeping, India is the greatest contributor of troops, of armed and civilian personnel to UN peacekeeping since the very beginning. India was the very first country to really bring the Women, Peace and Security 1325 agenda to bear by bringing women into the peacekeeping forces as well. So I think that it's not for me to speak about India's specific policy in this regard, but rather just to say that India plays an incredibly important role in many ways. Again, as Dr. Jaishankar said, it's a combination, peace and development. These are two sides of the same coin. And India's contributions to international peace and development and South-South cooperation and as a voice for the Global South is vitally important to help bring about conditions for peace globally looking forward. And I think the alignment between 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, where India is absolutely a leader, India is moving the global needle by what India is achieving at home, is a stepping stone on the same path to 2047, to Viksit Bharat. So as India achieves 2030, 2047 comes into view as well. As I like to say, SDGs dunya mein mumkin hongi, kyunki Bharat mein mumkin hongi.
What we can expect on India's, address to the Assembly on the 27th. What are your expectations, and what do you think Dr. Jaishankar will say in this Assembly?
Well, of course, I can't predict what he might say, but I think really what I would focus on more is going to be the importance of what he does say, which is that India is playing an increasingly absolutely critical role in the geopolitical space and in the development space. And I think that India, what we've seen, perhaps it was really, the G20 was in a way a bit of a coming out party like that India is uniquely positioned with bridges of trust and partnerships across all dimensions of divides, north, south, east, west, the G7 world actually, and the G20 world, and the G77, the global south as well. India is a country that lands on the moon and also is developing new ways to lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, which are very, very relevant for developing countries of the global south. So I think the importance is that India is looking at how to solve the challenges especially for those developing countries impacted the most in energy security. India is innovating and investing in renewable energy like perhaps no other country at the current moment. In food security as well, in countering terrorism, for example. India and the UN have worked together very closely on counterterrorism measures. This Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, that was his first priority, was to enhance and strengthen, create the Office of Counterterrorism. India, when India was president of the Security Council, really put the focus on the counterterrorism. I had the opportunity to participate when India invited the Counterterrorism Committee to Delhi, to Mumbai. And India has been focusing on how to really upgrade counterterrorism approaches in terms of technologies and using AI applications and these sorts of things. So I think all of that probably we're going to hear, I would presume, Dr. Jaishankar's speech. But the main point is really cementing India's vitally important role, has been important for a long, long time, a civilizational country important for thousands of years. And now, when we see so much fracturing in the world, more than ever, we need the kind of leadership that India brings. We need Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We need that spirit of the world as one family. That does imply reform. India is a champion of reform, of multilateralism. But as Dr. Jaishankar said today, we need more international dialogue and cooperation and diplomacy, not less.